Hi, Tracy here, also known as Mercy Tiara, with another episode of Find Your Mojo. Each episode will give you a prompt or a challenge to get your creative juices flowing and get you scrapping and documenting your memories. This time, the prompt is start with a title. So I'm starting here with a 3x3 photo, a 3x3 inch photo from my sister's Instagram, actually. I'm using the completely fun Space Academy collection from Carta Bella, and I'm starting with a title this time. I don't do a whole lot of boy layouts, and so I felt like I wasn't exactly sure where to start. I was a little stumped. So I thought I'm going to start with the title, and because my nephew is looking at these stars that were projected on the side of his fort, he's inside of a blanket fort there, I thought that the title Stargazer from the sticker sheet would make a really great title for this one. So I put it on a piece of wax paper so that I can play around with placement, and I put it over to the side, and now I'm going to have a look through the papers. I'm looking for a background paper here, and that first one had too much contrast on it. And this one here, I really like a couple of things about it. I like that it's on a dark blue background, and I like that there are still the orbits of the planets, but it's not quite as high contrast as that lighter colored one with the dark orbits on it. I like it better in reverse with the blue background and the lighter colored orbits. So I also played around with a couple of different options for what I could mat the photo on, and those two dark colored pattern papers I thought would make pretty good mats, and I'll decide which one later. And now I'm just having a look at some of the ephemera pieces that I have from this collection, just to figure out what I might want to put in between my layers. So I'm having a look again at the pattern paper, and I'm trying to find a couple of patterns that I can use for layers behind my photo. And I really like that one that has lots of orange along with the planets and the suns, I guess, or stars, or I don't know, that orange one that's on the top there. And what I really like about it is that orange is the opposite of blue on the color wheel, and so the orange is going to give a really nice dramatic hit to this page. So that's why I'm choosing this particular pattern paper. I'm just using my ruler so that I can tear it, and a little chunk of it tore a little bit wrong there at the edge, but I really like it like that, and I'm going to make this one do a similar thing by basically ripping it off to an angle so that torn piece looks much less straight than my usual torn edges look. And I really like the added dimension that gives with the torn page down the torn edge of the paper down the side. So again, I'm keeping in mind what kind of emblems I have to work with, and what icons and designs are in the sticker sheet. And I wanted another piece of torn paper to run horizontally across this, just to provide a little bit of grounding. What I'm thinking is that I'll have a cluster to the right and a cluster to the left of this, and then perhaps another little cluster way up in the top left-hand corner. And again, I'm designing all of this around my title of Stargazer. And so I went into my stash to pick out a couple of letter stickers. And these are both different options for mini market letter stickers, which are made by October Afternoon. And I ended up deciding to go with these ones because they had more of a retro feel to them. They're called index cards. And I just really like the little red cross hatches that are on the background of the tiles. And I wanted tile letter stickers in this situation because I didn't want the background to compete with the legibility of the subtitle here. So I basically just went online and looked up Stargazer quotes. And this quote actually doesn't have the word Stargazer on it, but it says, look how they shine for you. And so I thought Stargazer, look how they shine for you would be a nice title and subtitle. And I just wanted something kind of, because this is more of an artistic layout than it is necessarily telling a specific story. So this isn't necessarily about how my sister made a fort with her son and was struggling to put him to bed. It's more about my nephew and how cute he is, and just, living in a different province from my nephew. I don't know all of the everyday stories from him, but I do get to see all these pictures on her feed. And so this is more about, kind of secondhand seeing how cute he is in between my visits, where I get to see firsthand how cute he is. So what I'm doing right here is I'm just going through the embellishments, the ephemera packs from this collection, and I picked a whole bunch of them and I just put them up slightly out of screen off to the top left-hand corner, because again, I think I mentioned already that I'm planning to perhaps do a little cluster up there. I'm not entirely sure. And then I took that large die cut piece with the astronaut on it, the astronaut boy, and that's going to be where my journaling is going to go. Then I have a couple of other embellishments. I have that little space tag over to the left, and then I just put that boarding pass in behind, that large die cut boarding pass piece. And I'm just working my way through the embellishments, and I'm trying to pick ones that I think go both thematically and also with the color scheme that I'm working with here, which is mostly blues and oranges with, like, I guess that red is an orangey red, like a tomato red. So I took a picture of it before I took it all apart, and then I cut the manufacturer's strip off of it there with my trimmer. And now I'm going to try to put most of these things back where they came. And I have to find the photo in her Instagram. And so, because I want the journaling to be, and then it just disappeared because I had edited that photo so that I could print it up in a square and not have the writing underneath of it. So I actually had to go to my sister's Instagram account and try to find that photo from way back in February of 2016 and get her Instagram post again, because my journaling is just exactly what she wrote on Instagram. So it says, okay, so we've read books, made shadow puppets, and played Light Bright in the fort, and it's finally bedtime. Let's see how long he lasts in there tonight. And so she had made a blanket fort for him, and was trying to get him to go to bed, and he was wanting to sleep in the fort, and I guess she was wondering, how long will he actually sleep in this? So then I'm putting Sarah B. Barra, which is her Instagram name, and the date, and then at the top I'm putting Instagram and a column just to make it clear that this is from Instagram, and that kind of tells the story about how, through the magic of social media these days, we get to follow our nephew quite a bit more closely than we would have been able to in the absence of that kind of technology. So that's basically what this layout is about, although I'm not really writing that. It's just kind of the unspoken story behind this one. And I'm big on unspoken stories. I don't always I don't always spell out exactly what I'm trying to say. I like either my design or my journaling to kind of subtly hint at sometimes what I want to say if I don't have a specific story, right? Because I wasn't there, I don't have a specific story about how cute this was, or, how entertaining it was to see him and his bedtime shenanigans, because I wasn't there. So this is more about, I get to be a part of this through social media, which is really a lovely thing. So you saw me just outline, and the reason that I'm outlining is to provide some separation between the layers. Those two layers are quite busy, the orange one and then that badge, that space badge pattern paper on the very back layer, the blue one with space badges all over it. And because they're quite busy, I find it helps to just outline them. You could ink them if you wanted, or sew around them, or you don't even have to do it. I just like having that little bit of definition, especially with two very, very busy patterns. I stuck a couple of die cuts over to the left to balance off with that journaling piece that's over to the right. So there's the planet, the square one with the planet with the ring on it, and then there's a tag that says space as well. And so I'm just gluing everything together based on my picture that I have. I have my phone over to my left there. And now I don't want to commit to where that red piece is going, so I'm gluing everything together so that the red piece is not actually connected, so I can kind of slide it around depending on where I want the journaling and the subtitle to go. So now you see that it is actually connected because I just glued the journaling die cut to the red piece, which holds it in place, and I will make it a little bit more firm by here when I glue all of those layers to the back. I made sure that I put some adhesive on that red piece, which was not very well. It was really just attached to it in a tiny little way to the journaling piece. So that helps it to be very secure now, and it's not going to go anywhere. So now having these words on wax paper really helps me plan out where I want to place them, which helped me place my journaling piece relative to that red piece, and helped me place the red piece relative to the other elements on the background paper. Like, I didn't want to cover up too much the solar system design that's over on the right-hand side of this paper. And so I like how that looks. I just put them on pretty casually. I even left the exclamation point a little bit separated there. And now, because Stargazer is the title, I don't want it to blend in too much with all the other elements on this page. And so one thing that I can do to draw your attention to it is I'm going to pop it up with these pop dots. These are from Stampin' Up. They're called dimensional adhesive, technically. And so I've cut some of the pieces up so that they're smaller, and that's really easy to do because the edge piece is a unique little design that you can cut into a couple of different pieces just by putting these little slices into it. And that gives you a couple of different sizes of dimensional adhesive here. So I'm just taking my time and putting a little bit of foam tape behind all the different parts of that title that pops up. And now I'm going to pull off the backings, which takes a little bit of time because there's so many little pieces, but it's worth the effort because what this does is it will allow this title to cast a little gray shadow all the way around it and pop it up from the other elements on the page to really draw your attention to the fact that it is the title. And it doesn't hurt either that Chase is actually pointing right to the beginning of the title in the picture. So now what I find about this collection is that the papers all have a very distressed kind of look to them, but the stickers are quite vivid relative to the papers, and that's because they're just a different texture, and so the color just is a little tiny bit more rich. They match very beautifully, but they're not exactly the same as the cardstock elements that are like the pattern papers and the ephemera. So I'm adding a couple of stickers every here and there just for the richness of the stickers and the fact that they're a slightly different texture. So I'm putting this large planet up here over the title, and I'm putting a couple of different spaceships in different places. I wanted to put some stuff on the red piece of paper, of pattern paper that sticks out here over on the left hand side, just to balance off because it's so covered on the right hand side. And I'm just kind of making sure that there's a balance between stickers and die cut pieces on the right and on the left. And I just put that other aircraft there, spacecraft, just to the left of the S, and so that it's right on the orbit, which is on the background paper. And now I am going to move up to the top left-hand corner. I had mentioned that I wanted a little cluster here. And I definitely want a little bit of red up here, and I really like that tag that says intergalactic with some space on it, and I thought that I could do some journaling on that. This little piece here really stood out as something that I wanted to put on the page, and I'm going to put it over here because I just think that it provides nice balance. I wanted slightly more stuff layered up together over there on the left-hand side, because the right-hand side has the title, the subtitle, the journaling, all very heavy elements. And it also has that solar system printed on, and all that data printed on the background paper there. And so I felt like I needed a lot over on the left-hand side to balance with everything that's over on the right-hand side. So back to my upper cluster here, I put that rocket ship, the red one that I just peeled up for a second there to put the tag underneath of it. I put that so that it's right on one of the orbits on the background paper. And I really like using those orbits as part of my design, so that when I place things, I'm placing them so that they line up with those orbits sometimes. Not every time, but some of the time. So I'm using more dimensional adhesive on this astronaut die cut piece that is just going to layer with the tag a little bit. And then I'm putting another planet with rings right there, just a smaller one than the one that's above the ZER in Stargazer. And now I'm doing a tiny bit of journaling. I'm just putting Chase in case I forget which boy this was. My sister has 2 boys. And the date, February 2016. And then under module, I put Operation Bedtime. And then I just cut off the top of the tag. Even though I did like that it was a tag, it was too large to leave the whole entire tag there. So now I'm just inserting a couple of little pop dots every here and there, these dimensional adhesive pieces from Stampin' Up! And I'm actually not removing the backing on them. I'm just using them to hold the space. So they're just going to make sure that these papers all curve up a little bit on the edges, which will give them a little bit more dimension and a little bit more interest. So now you'll get to see the close-ups of this one, and there are some photos as well. And I really like how the arcs of those orbits that are on the background paper, they kind of guide your eye around the page on this one. So not necessarily in one continuous visual path, but they kind of lead your eye around and around in circles so that you can, take in all of the different elements. And there is a lot to take in the layers between all of the pattern paper, but I really like how it looks. It adds lots of visual interest, and because there's so much negative space above the cluster, I think it works to have a really densely layered cluster right here. And that inter-universe tab that I stapled on there is one of my favorite embellishments on this whole page. I just love the font. I love all of these really retro typographic types of titles, and I really wanted to make use of those on this page. Here's that top cluster again. And then in a second, you're going to see that photo of my nephew. Isn't he adorable with those stars all over his face and his hand? He's trying to touch them, but of course he can't. So thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Find Your Mojo. If you have trouble getting started this month, try starting with the title and going from there. And I hope you all have a really great scrappy week.